Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from the Telesur studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. Several central states in Mexico are facing fuel shortages as the government tries to combat fuel theft. Gas stations in the city of Guadalajara were closed on Sunday, including those operated by the state oil company Pemex. The shortages followed the closure of a pipeline in the central state of Guanajuato and the use of tankers to transport fuel. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has vowed to return law and order to the nation.
How is it petty theft if we're talking about the robbery of more than 1,000 pipelines a day of 3,962 gallons from each pipeline? How did they distribute all that stolen gasoline? Well, there was an attitude of a total complicity on the part of Pemex. Now we have a rule of law. There is no more rule of the crooked. So now they are pressuring us, thinking that they'll beat us. They don't want to arm wrestle with us because the law will win out and justice will win out.
And the Mexican president has also announced plans to create a new free economic zone stretching along its entire border with the United States. Our correspondent Pablo Perez brings us the details from Mexico City.
On the occasion of his visit to the border town of Tijuana, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador stressed the importance of the creation of a free economic zone. He said the planned zone between the U.S. and Mexico would be one of the biggest free economic zones on the American continent. It would include various economic measures such as the reduction of value-added tax and of the income tax, and also a substantial increase of the minimum wage. He added that for those who are against these measures, the initial economic loss would be compensated in the long term as the businesses start to prosper. This free economic zone will stretch from the U.S. state of California and the Mexican state of Baja California at the Pacific coast to the U.S. state of Texas and the Mexican state of Tamaulipas at the Gulf of Mexico.
And President Maduro is set to take office for a second term this January 10th. With the details, our correspondent in Venezuela, Luis Tavera.
3 days before Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is sworn in by the Supreme Court for his second term in office, he continues to receive international support, with several governments standing behind him. During a speech, President Maduro said, despite some rejections, like the ones by the Lima Group, no one will stop the people of Venezuela from welcoming the president they voted for. He also said he will continue developing the country's economic and social policies, despite attempts by these groups and nations to hide the achievements made during 20 years of the Bolivarian Revolution. The Foreign Ministry also condemned this behavior, especially by the Colombian government. Venezuelan Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza said the Colombian government should not interfere in Venezuela's internal affairs. Meanwhile, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel has supported the government of Nicolas Maduro through social media, saying the people are the ones who have to decide about a nation's internal affairs, as all countries in the world do. Maduro's political party is getting ready for the inauguration next Thursday, the 10th of January.
And Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has met with the Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, to discuss their bilateral ties under the framework of ALBA and Petrocaribe. Earlier, we spoke to our correspondent Gemma Handy to get the latest details.
So what can you tell us more about the meeting between Prime Minister Brown and the Venezuelan Foreign Minister?
Well, the meeting took place this morning. It lasted about 30 minutes. It held up the Foreign Minister's request. We know he's been here many times before, of course. The OAS resolution, as you mentioned, it did arrive. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister, Gaston Brown, reiterated that long stance that the Twin Island nation will not support any action that goes against Venezuela. If there's any resolution that condemns Venezuela, Antigua and Barbuda will either abstain or vote against it. The other thing that came up, they also discussed the inauguration of President Maduro, of course, this Thursday. The Prime Minister said he would like to be there. If not, then his Foreign Minister will represent him. Of course, a welcome show of support in light of the stance of the United States, Canada and a number of other countries that we've seen recently, who of course have been demanding that Maduro hands over power.
Now, Gemma, Antigua and Barbuda has been very supportive of Venezuela, while two members of CARICOM, Guyana and St. Lucia, which are also part of the Lima group, says it will not recognize President Maduro's second term. Do you think that's likely to generate tension within CARICOM?
Well, it's an interesting question. At the General Assembly vote in June last year, CARICOM countries were very divided on the question of their support for Venezuela. It's doubtful individual countries will have altered that stance. Many small islands, of course, have been very grateful recipients of discounted oil from Venezuela and the accompanying social programs too. They won't be turning their back on a friend now. Some of the larger countries have previously voted in favour of suspending Venezuela from the OAS. Barbados, Guyana, Jamaica, and equally to this region, they're very reluctant to be seen to be acting against the United States. That, of course, is where most of the tourism dollars come from. Likely many will abstain once again. Regarding conflict, there's generally an understanding among the Caribbean nations. They enjoy very close ties. I'd say it's unlikely to cause a lasting risk.
Time for a first break here from the South, but you can follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us.
Infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice. The American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deepening into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur.
And we are back. This Monday, Chilean security forces began to evict Mapuche communities from territories in the region of Temucuicui that have traditionally belonged to this ancestral community. The moves comes after the assassination of young Mapuche Camilo Catrillanca on November 14, 2018. Police repression in the area continued with the Lonco from Temocuicui Victor Quepuil being detained minutes before the eviction took place in the southern part of the country. The Mapuche community had to resist pellets and tear gas used by the Chilean Carabineros Special Forces. And Uruguay paid tribute to the three wise men with a party known as the Calls of San Baltasar. This colorful party is held ahead of Carnival and of the yearly Candombe parade. Thousands took part in the festivities, which is one of the most important celebrations for Afro-Uruguayans.
For all of us, the Candomberos, this is one of the biggest parties. It's an Uruguayan popular party. I think it must be the largest free popular party in the country. Today, we opened with the three kings giving gifts to all children. We are very excited that we achieved this.
And Guyana is mourning the loss of one of its veteran diplomats, Dr. Oden Ismail. He died at his Florida home over the weekend. He was 70 years old, and Dr. Ismail has served as Guyana's ambassador to Kuwait, and he was also appointed as non-resident ambassador to Qatar, a recipient of the Cacique's Crown of Honor. He also served as Guyana's ambassador to the U.S. and later to Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister is warning of job loss and business sector struggles in the year ahead. Dr. Keith Rowley tore into the previous government, saying it had wasted nearly $5 billion in cash, and for that his administration's hands were tied. He added that the country is well on its way to meeting the IMF growth projection for 2019. And in Colombia, another social leader has been killed. So far in 2019, 5 campesino leaders have been murdered. Our correspondent José Manuel Jiménez brings us the details.
The death of another social leader has been confirmed in Colombia. Her name was Maritza Quiroz. She was a campesino and a member of the Armed Conflict Victims Association of the Santa Marta region in the department of Magdalena. Over the last couple of days, we informed of the murder of other 4 social leaders across the country. And now, there are 5 leaders murdered in just the first days of the year of 2019. The National Indigenous Organization of Colombia announced that since August 7, under the administration of President Iván Duque, attacks against indigenous people have gotten worse. According to statistics, 36 indigenous leaders have been killed. Many organizations estimate that over 400 social leaders have been murdered since the Colombian government signed the Havana Peace Accords with the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Despite the alarming figures, the national government has taken no firm measures to protect social leaders and ensure their safety. They also have failed to combat the paramilitary structure responsible for these crimes. Social, political, indigenous, and human rights organizations and activists all across Colombia are demanding justice, as well as a thorough investigation of the events that have taken place and an end to violence in Colombia.
And the Colombian Association of Campesinos in the department of Córdoba has denounced the murder of a regional leader at the hands of military forces. Paula Fernández brings us the details.
The Colombian Campesinos Association in Córdoba has denounced the assassination of Luis Garay, who was dedicated to defense of campesino rights in the region. For some time, they have been denouncing the possibility of aggression in south of the department of Córdoba. Armed groups have displaced and attacked families due to disputes in the area surrounding narco-trafficking. Despite the militarization of the area, murders and attacks on local communities continue. In the case, it has been said that the murder of Luis Garay was committed by members of armed forces. It has also been said that since the area has been occupied by the army, there has been more aggression and violence. Local communities demand state intervention, not only militarily, but also through social investment and protection.
And classes have begun at Ross University School of Medicine's New Barbados campus, which officially opened over the weekend. During her feature address, Barbados Prime Minister Mia Madlin encouraged Barbadians to embrace the more than 1,000 students like their own. In August last year, Dominica's Prime Minister announced that Ross University would be leaving the Eastern Caribbean nation after 40 years.
when asked, would you give up this building within 6 months to become the home of a major university? My government took the risk. When asked, could we see ourselves not just facilitating the education, but the accommodation and transport and living of an additional 1,500 to 1,600 people in this country, not a year from now, but within less than 6 months from July, we said yes, and we took the risk. And we took the risk because we believe that within us lay the virtue of building partnerships.
Now let's take a second break. More news when we are back. And we are back. Ethiopia and Eritrea have formally opened a border crossing between the two nations. The ceremony was graced by Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki. The ceremony shows an effort to restore ties since signing a peace agreement last year. The agreement is an attempt to end 2 decades of hostility which simmered on after this country's brutal war between 1998 and 2000, which left 80,000 people dead. And the government of Gabon have announced the death of 2 soldiers involved in Monday's attempt coup d'etat. A 5th military officer has also been apprehended after initially eluding the security officers deployed to arrest him. Earlier, the 5 officers stormed the state radio station and asked the people to oust ailing President Ali Bongo. The Bongo family has ruled Gabon for over 5 decades.
As soon as the government was informed of the situation, measures were put into place efficiently to neutralize and arrest members of the political group. During this operation, 2 insurgents died. The others, including Lieutenant Ondo Obiang Kelly, were arrested and then presented to the Prosecutor General.
There have been an increased military presence on the streets of Libreville following the attempted coup. The Republican Guard was deployed around the radio station, blocking access to the area. A government spokesperson said security forces will remain there for the following days. And the French government has announced a new law against unauthorized protests. The new measure will significantly toughen punishment for people who participate in riots. This comes in the wake of anti-government protests which has rocked France for the past couple of weeks. It is believed the tough punishment is meant to deter people from participating in the yellow vest protests around the country.
The government is in favor of our law being amended. This will allow us to punish those who do not respect this obligation to declare their participation in protests. Today, this is fine. Tomorrow, it must become a crime. We need to make sure it is the civil responsibility of the rioters to make the reparations and not the taxpayers to pay for the damages done.
And the Ukrainian Orthodox Church has gained its independence from Russia's Orthodox Church, to which it had been tied since 1686. There are concerns that a split will trigger tensions between both nations, since Russia has annexed the region of Crimea in 2014.
The Ukrainian Orthodox Church has finally broken free from the Bishop of Moscow, the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church, known as the Patriarch of Moscow. The decree to release the Ukrainian church was signed in Istanbul, where celebrations took place soon after.
Today is a sacred day for all of us. The decree signed by our spiritual leader gives us the freedom we sought. The document will be taken to Kiev and put on display so that the Ukrainian believers can see it.
Istanbul hosted the event because the Orthodox Church is symbolically led by the Constantinople Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew I. Among those present were the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and the former President Viktor Yushchenko.
We have an independent state and an independent church. They will never mix.
Relations between the Russian Orthodox Church and the Patriarchate of Constantinople will most likely be tense from now on, while Russia and Ukraine are likely to maintain their political dispute.
Maybe Russia will try to re-elect, but what it's done is done. This cannot be changed, so Russia cannot really do anything.
The rupture is seen as a political move, if only symbolically. From now on, the man in charge of Ukraine's Orthodox Church will be the Metropolitan of Kiev, Epiphanios I. In the end, the creation of Ukraine's new Orthodox Church is yet another issue in the fraught relationship between Russia and Ukraine.
And the Palestinian Authority has withdrawn its employees from the Rafah border, leaving Hamas in control of Gaza's only entry point to Egypt. The withdrawal leaves the state of the border crossing unclear. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi accused Hamas of supporting militants through the border crossing and surrendering area. A spokesperson from Hamas criticized that decision.
It's clear that the authority is going too far by imposing sanctions on the Gaza Strip. Hamas believes that everyone is affected by these sanctions. We will work in accordance with all the factions through a national consensus to ensure solutions to this crisis in the Gaza Strip.
And the World Bank Group Chief Executive Jim Jong Kim will be stepping down on the 1st of January, 3 years before his term officially expires. The bank has said Kim is leaving the institution on his own accord. His policies on climate change have frequently clashed with those of the Trump administration. And Trump is expected to wield strong influence in choosing the next head of the multilateral financial institution. Thank you very much. Like this, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many more on our website, telesurenglish.net, where you can read and watch opinion articles and special interviews. Continue with Telesur, connecting the global south. Until next time.